Hello my quilting friends, Leah Day here with a new Sit Down Quilting Sunday video. Today I am quilting in the ditch on an applique quilt, and really there are no ditches in an applique quilt. Really what I'm doing is kind of outline quilting the appliques, and this is one of those things that you really want to maintain good control over your stitches, and you need to watch out for things like your needle gumming up and stuff like that. So let's get on the machine. I'll give you some tips for quilting applique. So I'm getting started right in the center of my quilt block, and as you can see, I'm just stitching right on the edge of my appliques. Now these appliques were secured before basting the blocks with a blanket stitch, and now I'm just stitching right on the edge. And this is basically ditching. It's outline quilting all of these shapes, so that way, number one, they're going to be secure. That's kind of the first reason why I do this. The second reason why I do this is so that the quilt, all of the spaces in the quilt are outlined. And that way I can travel stitch along this line anytime I need to. And the blocks are going to look just as good on the back as they do on the front. This is one of those things that I really love to do, and I think really makes the difference in a quilt. Just making sure to stitch along all of those lines and edge stitch them, so that way they're secure, and when I flip up the block you can see it has really nice look to that outline stitching. So now I panned out a bit so that way you can see my hands on the block. I really want you to see how I position my hands, and I almost create a hoop using my index finger and thumbs, and I'm pulling down with my thumbs a little bit and out with my fingers, and I have all of my fingers spread out like this, and that's just to ensure that I have good control over the block. I know exactly how it's moving through the machine, and it might appear like I'm getting really close to my thumbs. It's just the shot of the camera. I'm actually never any closer than 1/2 inch from my thumbs. You know, it's not dangerous, it just might be the angle of the camera, so keep that in mind. I do a lot of stopping and starting, and I do rotate the block quite a bit. You know, I shouldn't have to. I could just reposition my hands and start stitching, but that feels awkward to me, so I'm going to stop and rotate the block a little bit, because if this stitching is messy, it really shows up. I really want this outline quilting to be perfect. I want it to be right on the line. I don't want to, you know, overshoot and stitch into the wrong applique. That would look messy. And I also want the outline to be exactly the shape it needs to be to outline, you know, that part of the hair or that part of the face. I want it to look that good on the front and the back. So I'm just working my way around and removing pins as needed. And I want to let you know that there are a lot of different options that you could do with this. You know, I've decided to use my long arm to quilt these designs, but you know, you could also stitch in the ditch like this using your walking foot. If you want more control over your stitching and you don't want to have to work so hard to stay right on the line, then a walking foot will give you more control, and it will give you that perfectly balanced stitch length that you can set on the machine. When you're free motion quilting, you don't have any control over that. It's just a balancing a ratio between the speed of your hands moving and the speed of your needle going up and down. Now, a common question that I've received a lot about the Grace Qnique is whether it has a stitch regulator or not. And no, it does not. The speed of the machine is entirely being controlled by the foot pedal that I'm using. I'm just pressing on a foot pedal, and that is increasing and decreasing the speed of the machine, just like a home sewing machine. So there is not a stitch regulator on this machine until you put it on a frame, until you turn it into a long arm and start long arm quilting with it. So that's an important distinction, and one of the major things about long arm quilting that's kind of nice is that when you put it on a frame, it's got a stitch regulator, and then the stitches are automatically going to be balanced for you. Whenever you're free motion quilting like this and using a foot pedal, it's just a matter of pressing down on the foot pedal and then trying to move your hands in a speed that matches that, and then if you press harder, to move your hands faster. And I would have to say, generally what I see is people moving their hands a little too fast. And so I want you to notice just how slowly I move my hands. It's a very slow, steady movement. And I'm never in a rush when it comes to quilting, especially outline quilting like this. Now, if you notice that I'm changing directions and quilting this and sometimes travel stitching backwards, it's because I've quilted this is my 4th block, so I have memorized how to stitch it in the ditch and I know my path basically, and I know what order to quilt everything into with the least amount of travel stitching. And that's just one of those fun things when it comes to quilting something over and over again, especially in this case I have 4 blocks that make the entire quilt, and each of them is quilted in a slightly different way, but they all start out with this same stitching in the ditch, the same outline quilting. So I have to make sure to do this and do it consistently so that all of the blocks are the same. So that is how I'm going to go through and secure these layers together. I'm just simply going to work around these shapes, stitching right on the edges, making sure to keep my quilting clean and even, so that way the layers are secure. I can take out most of the pins and enjoy quilting in many different designs into these spaces. So that's it for this video. I really hope you learned a lot about quilting applique and the different things that you need to watch out for as you stitch around your shapes. If you'd like to learn more about the machine that I am using, it's the Grace Qnique 14 Plus, and you can learn more about it at graceframe.com. I have mine set up like this as a table-mounted long arm or a sit-down long arm, so that way I can quilt the way I'm used to quilting on my home machine. So learn more about it, and of course if you have any questions about anything you saw in this video, please ask in the comments below. Really want to help you learn more about quilting. Until next time, let's go quilt.